30 years. So, I mean, I guess I have empathy for people who are going stir crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm fortunate not to be. I'm just fine with having people say, you know what, you shouldn't be going out. I'm like, okay, great, fine. And we do virtual. I've been doing this virtual thing for 20, 25, 30 years. I mean, so I'm good.
New to you then. Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is nothing new to me. Having such easy access to video is new. I've kind of been out of the public eye I've been out of the high engagement mode for the last 10 years. I've been kind of doing corporate stuff. And so before that, I used Skype a bunch, and Skype and free conference call, but the readily accessible video is kind of new. And true confession, I'm not enormously comfortable on video. In person, man, you put me on a stage and I'm one of those crazy people who I love it. I thrive on it. But talking to that little right dot right there and trying to remember to talk to the dot, not you down there.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to look at your face, and it looks weird when I'm looking at your face on video rather than looking at the dot. So
it's a different experience altogether, no doubt, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're live, just so you know, because we just came on right at 4. So
yeah, I caught the red dot out of the corner of my eye. I think one of the things you also have to do if you're going to be doing a lot of stuff on video is get really good at your peripheral awareness.
Yep. You're just
yeah. That's it.
You see some of these folks that have like multiple monitor setups, and they're looking up here and there, and
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited to do this because, like you said on the LinkedIn post, I mean, we've known each other forever, and we've engaged on social platforms forever. But aside from, I think you and I were pretty going to a lot of the same events, probably, I don't know, 5 to 8 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the different meetups and events that were going on around Austin, but I've actually never had an opportunity to sit down and just like, riff a little bit, because we have so much similarity in terms of what we do and how we focus.
Yeah, I know. I was refreshing. It'd been years since I'd read Ripple Effect, and so I was kind of refreshing myself on that the other day, and I was like, wow, holy crap, there's just so much similarity. We're hitting a lot of the same themes, just coming at it from slightly different angles.
Absolutely.
And I love that. I love being able to look at same issues from different angles.
Well, it's kind of funny because your book, and actually I want to put a link up to your book just so everybody knows how to see what that is. The Virtual Handshake, it came out the same time my first edition did. And then I brought out a second edition. I'm working on a third edition, but how, I look at what you did back then and what I did, with my book, and ultimately like you said, there's a lot of similarities, but we come at it from different perspectives and different angles. But really, how relevant it is in today's world when we're not actually having coffee together, or we can't even see each other.
Yeah. That was the challenge for us. We started writing the book in 2003.
Yep.
And since we were specifically focused on online relationships, we're sitting there seeing people starting blogging and Skype going crazy, and Facebook and LinkedIn starting going, we're not going to get our book out in time. We're not going to get our book out in time. Well, and we were panicked that we were going to be too late. And it's turned out I think we were actually really the first book on what we now call social media marketing.
Yeah.
Others had mentions, but in terms of a book dedicated to that, but we didn't want to write a book that had an 18-month shelf life.
Yep.
So it couldn't be effectively how to win friends and influence people on Facebook. Right.
That's right.
And so that's the big reason that we focus the approach on like a strategic framework and on the soft skills and the relationship skills that are just as relevant, whether we're talking about Zoom or StreamYard or Skype or Yahoo groups. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
The platform is pretty much irrelevant. So we're actually working on finally a second edition of the Virtual Handshake that we're going to try to get done this year.
Awesome.
Seems timely, and
Absolutely.
I'm going through it though, and it's fun because the case studies, updating some of the case studies and the examples just because of what's familiar to people, but there's not much in terms of the core content that's actually changing.
Right.
So,
Well, so for people that are watching, I mean, I'm super fascinated. What led you down the path to write that book? Was it you were doing a lot of consulting in the space beforehand and found that, this would be a way to get a wider audience, get more consulting clients? What was your motivation?
I jumped off a sinking ship. No, I had been at a couple of tech companies around, kind of at the it sounds so weird to say it, but at the turn of the century,
Yeah.
the turn of the millennium, and I was figuring out what I was going to do next, and I had been working for some companies, busting my ass 80 hours a week, following someone else's dream, and decided I'd go back to doing my own thing. And I did a couple of things. First of all, as I found my way to about.com. So I signed on and got the gig as the entrepreneur's guide at about.com, which was part-time, and this sort of weird thing that we have now. Now we just take it for granted, but sort of this entrepreneurial journalist kind of thing where you're responsible for content and driving traffic to it. But I did this soul searching of what I wanted to do next. And I kind of narrowed it down to 3 choices. One was knowledge management for small businesses. One was promoting open source for small businesses as a, untether from Microsoft. And then what we now call social media, we called it online business networking at the time, was the third one. And so I did my usual big decision process where I kind of bounced back and forth between, well, we'll call it left brain and right brain. But between the analytical and the emotional gut feel. And this was the one I settled on, is that this is going to be exciting. This is going to be big. I can be in it early. I can at least for a while be the guy, right? And that's what got me into it. And that was in fall of 2002. Do you know Donna Fisher?
I remember the name. I don't know. Yeah.
So she was sort of her along with Ivan Meisner were a couple of big people who were some of the first people really talking about networking as a practice. In the late 80s, 90s. And so she was a friend, and I kind of got together with her and started kind of defining something. We put on a workshop. We put on our first workshop in December 2002, and I had about 20 people in a River Oaks Bank boardroom down in Houston, and I signed up clients out of that. So I was a social media consultant in December 2002. And
before social media was technically a term, right?
Oh, it wasn't. It was, online business networking. And I don't know if still, but for a long time, if you Googled online business networking, we had onlinebusinessnetworking.com. And so for a long time, if you searched that was all my stuff that you found. But really wanted to take a methodical approach to it. I like applying. I talked to you earlier about that thing about bouncing between left brain and right brain. I like taking an analytical approach to human complexity, right? And the thing I mean, when I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm talking from my heart, right? We're here. If I'm at a networking event, whoever I'm talking to is the most important person in the world to me, right? That is, I'll get fully present. I am not looking for an out. I'm not constantly evaluating. I am fully present with that person, the other human being. I value them as a human being. But time is a zero-sum game, right? There are only X number of hours in the day, and unless you're running a networking organization, you've also got other things you got to do with your work time besides network.
That's
and so I have to think at a meta level above the momentary engagement. I found that I needed to think about it in terms of, what's my most efficient, most effective way to use my time? And if I'm going to consult others, what's the most efficient, most effective way for them to use their time? And it was right about this time that I think the first one, I think there's 3 or 4 by this title now, of 101 networking tips came out.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
And I laughed as soon as I read the title. I'm like, 101 networking tips. You can't implement 101 networking tips. So how are you going to decide which ones are going to be relevant for you?
Yeah.
And I said, you've got, and I realized that most people are going to do it because that sounds cool. I can do that. Sure, there's an event on, join Rotary. Great. It's on Tuesday nights right near my house. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Not thinking at all in terms of, are these going to be the kind of people I want to meet? Am I going to have the kind of engagements with them that actually drive to results? And are they connected? What is it? All of these other sort of meta things, all of these meta issues about it, about the decision process of who you engage with and how. So that's really, if you ask, what is the virtual handshake about? The virtual handshake is a framework for figuring out who to engage with and how. And the answer is different for every person.
Yeah.
Because if you are a speaker, author, speaking professional and author, and that's your thing, just to get out and connect and find those kind of opportunities and sell your books, right? And drive traffic to your videos, that is a completely different that's a completely different framework of the kind of relationships you need to be building, versus if you are someone selling 7-figure enterprise software into the Fortune 100.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's, I think, that a lot of people, that's the thing I still see missing from a lot of the talk about networking and social media, is how to figure out who to engage with and what formats and so on and so forth. And the answer is just not the same for every person.
Absolutely. I see it a lot. People still take that shotgun approach that they used to with networking face-to-face events, but they're also doing it online, right? And one size does not fit all. And you really have to really hone in and understand and quantify where you want to make that investment of time, and ensure that you're spending time with the people that you really need to be spending the time with, right? Because you want to maximize that effort, but you also want to fish where there are fish, and be able to be in an environment where you've got the best possibility of being successful. It's not just run out and go to every networking event that you can get to in town, which I think, unfortunately, a lot of folks think that's what you have to do to grow your business, or, bosses tell their new hires, that's what you got to do to get out and build your professional brand and tie to this organization. And it's really not the case. You got to come in with the strategy. You got to be very, very specific about where the people that you most need to connect with, where do they spend their time? And ultimately, how can you get engaged in those environments without being a poser, like a
right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. We used to talk about, sort of the people who have drunk the networking Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And there's sort of this stereotypical, person they're a great networker. They would give you the shirt off their back. They're at every event. They're a brilliant conversationalist, and their business is shit.
Yeah.
because they're out there, they're following the formula, but then they don't have the other, they don't have their solid business really built to back it up, and they don't have the other channels going, right?
Yeah.
Networking is wonderful. Networking creates all kinds of opportunities, but that doesn't mean you don't still need a website and email marketing and a newsletter and getting on the phone with people and, all those things. It works best when it works together.
Absolutely. And you find those people that aren't really good. They may be really good at networking, but they're not good at networking for their business. And then you look at their LinkedIn profile and see that's why they change jobs every 6 to 18 months, right? And, that's, the people that have been maybe, I would say probably coaxed into giving contact information to them are the ones that end up getting, hey, I'm now here. I was there, but now I'm here. And they don't have a lot of credibility there. I think especially now, you and I think, have a lot of similarities in that you're looking for the right people in the right space, but then you have to go about building the connection to those people correctly. And then from the connection, you really want to build the relationship. Right. So I think one of the key aspects that I've looked at in terms of how you and I kind of approach things is that we're really very focused on trying to add value when and where we can, right? Because I think when you can do that, you become an asset to that person. You're not just a connection, and you're not just a vendor selling your product or service. You become important to them. And that makes you almost indispensable in a lot of ways, depending on how you build that relationship. Have you seen, with the last 5 to 10 years, with all these different platforms that have come out and different approaches to building the network, have you seen that change somewhat in terms of, what people are doing right and what people are doing wrong?
I think there's still a lot of chasing the numbers, and it just it doesn't help. Individuals do it somewhat. Companies, I think, do it even more. Of that, how many likes do we have? How many followers do we have? Even engagement metrics still doesn't really give you an accurate picture of the value.
That's right.
Because the one right connection, the one right opportunity, just blows all the other value. It blows all the other stuff out of the water. Of course, what happened? I think the story of what happened with LinkedIn is sort of the story of all of it, in that they came in that their core value proposition was trusted referrals. Who do you know who knows someone that X? Mm-hmm. Who do you know who knows someone in marketing at Coca-Cola? Who do you know who knows someone that's a patent attorney, right? Then it just kind of came in. It grew into this, the open networking thing where everybody connects with nearly everybody, and not being able to sort of make that distinction. And I'm not knocking that. It's what happened. It is what it is.
Right.
But understanding how much that shifts the value proposition, and just because, I've gone up to now, I'm up at like 26,000 connections. I decided to open up for a while because I had this aha moment that business relationships aren't all reciprocal, right? You're a speaker, you're an author. You can't know everybody who's a fan, someone comes up and hears you talk and wants to connect with you. Yeah, they're in a position to recommend you. You don't know squat about them, but Sure. They're in a position to endorse you, make a recommendation of you. They know you and your business. And I realize most business relationships are like this, right?
Yeah.
So I opened up there for a while and willing to do that. So like I said, it's not a matter of a right or wrong, but I know that right now when I'm trying to grow a new business and I'm making the leap from freelancer to firm, reaching 10,000 people does not help me move from freelancer to firm.
Sure.
Right? Finding the fulfillment and delivery partners who can help me get these larger contracts is what does that. Finding the people who can make the high quality personal introduction into this very narrow specific niche that I'm targeting. That's what's going to drive it. That doesn't mean I'm not going to also do a podcast and ramp back up the blog and stuff too, but a lot of times that's actually not the source of. That's one of the things I think is people don't realize that it's not necessarily that the blog or the podcast and the social media activity is the source of the opportunity. It's the credibility once you get one of those high quality opportunities, they can go look and go, oh, wow, man, Steve's been thinking about this for 15 years.
Yeah.
Look at this body of knowledge. I'm impressed.
Absolutely. Well, and your key, and you said something just to kind of come back to it, is it's those people that can get you to those key clients, right? Those key individuals. And you don't get there if they're just one of 26,000 people. You actually had to do something to differentiate that and
Right.
build a relationship with them, which is key. And I see the biggest difference, and you and I have maybe slightly different perspectives on the number of connections that we would have, because I try and narrow mine down a little bit. You've got it wide, right? Which is works for both of us in terms of what we're doing, because our philosophies are geared towards kind of our direction and how we want to, approach the building of our network. But the reality is we still very much focus on the key relationships that we depend on for that success. And you only get there if you've figured out how to connect and you've figured out how to add value and continue to grow that connection into something more, which hopefully turns into a relationship, so that when you do have that ask and you come to them and you say, hey, I see you're connected to that vice president at Coca-Cola and I'm trying to get this project off the ground with them, or I'm trying to get my foot in the door, they're far more likely and willing to extend their credibility to that individual to make that introduction.
Right. Yeah, this is actually, I think, probably one of the most insightful, one of the best insights I figured out about this is what I call the action threshold.
Okay.
And what the action threshold is basically how well does someone have to know you to take action on your behalf. And you start off with the reactive threshold. How well do they have to know you to take action on your behalf? All you have to do is both say we're LinkedIn open networkers for them to make a connection. So very low level of relationship required to take that small action. You kind of move up, if you're standing in line with someone at the grocery store and you're, 12 cents short, they'll take action on your behalf.
Sure.
Right. If you move on up to, I want to invest $1 million in your company, we're going to have to get to know each other really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me to take that action on your behalf. And if you think of that in terms of the relationship building, not just an exchange of information. So that's what we call the reactive threshold. How well do they have to know to do something when you ask them, to make that introduction, right?
Right.
The proactive threshold, the proactive action threshold is how well do they have to know you to take action proactively on your behalf, that they hear about an opportunity and they go, oh man, I need to introduce this person to Steve. This would be perfect for him.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where the magic happens. We've heard people talk about, the network effect. Well, it's really, this is the ripple effect.
Yeah.
Right. The ripple effect is not you going and asking people and asking people and asking people. The ripple effect is when people know you well enough, you've got a strong enough relationship with them that they will do exactly that they'll go, oh, this seems like a perfect opportunity for Scott, or I need to introduce this person to Steve, or whatever. And so you've got to be at a higher level of relationship with the person for them to go and take action on your behalf. And that's where you actually start to get leverage in your networking efforts. That's when you start to get this network effect, this force multiplier. Is only when you get relationships to that threshold. Now, you're not going to have every relationship at that threshold, but that's why you got to have some really key ones that you got to keep. You got to maintain them at the level that they will keep you top of mind and keep thinking about you for opportunities.
Yeah, I call it kind of the evangelist mindset for myself. It's those people that are sitting at a cocktail party and here's somebody with a need that they're like, oh, Scott is absolutely who you need to talk to. Let me make that connection for you, because that person gets what you get or what you offer, and they believe in you and know that if they open up this door of opportunity, you're someone that's going to be respectful of it. You're going to take care of it, and you're going to honor it for what it really is. And when you see a positive response like that from someone that you've helped out, you want to do it again and again and again. If you're bringing and adding value and people come back to you and go, oh my gosh, thanks for introducing me to Scott. That was so fantastic. And I think really kind of coming back to what we talked about at the beginning, which is, you really have to understand what that means to you and your business, and you have to plan for that. You really have to strategize in order to get to that level, and you have to figure out what it's going to take to build that kind of credibility and momentum for that person to become your evangelist. And I think
Right.
that's really, really key. I like your proactive approach. I mean, that's you and I are definitely on the same page for sure there.
Yeah. So, if you could generalize my strategy, it's to figure out sort of what's that level, who the right people are to have that level of relationship with, and do the activities that get you to there, and then start spreading that, spread from that foundation, spread wide at that level of engagement and that level of, relationship building.
Absolutely. And it's, I think for someone that's out there that's trying to get the networking thing and trying to figure out how to build their right network, that doesn't happen with everybody, and it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, you really do have to be strategic about it. That means that you have to put some time and energy into those connections to build them into the right kinds of relationships to get there. There is no quick, answers to the test to get to the finish line to accelerate that progress. It does take time. That's the problem that I see with a lot of people that are coming into networking environments. They don't recognize that, you can't hit a home run out of the gate. I mean, it takes time and it takes a lot of effort. And even if you were so lucky to maybe get one of those, home runs, the value of that is probably not as strong as you think it is. And that, that individual is probably not any more likely to do business with you in the future, any more than they might with your competitor, right? Because you didn't take the time to plant the right seeds, cultivate that relationship into something significant. And that's what I think is a big challenge for a lot of people. And especially folks that are, like you said, there's a metric, right? There's a numbers. And I gotta make so many calls. I gotta meet so many, people, I've gotta have X amount of, events on my calendar per week. And it's a numbers game. And I think that's the biggest challenge, because you want to see those results from those efforts. But if you're not investing the right actions in those activities, then you're going to fall short every time.
Right. One of the things that that kind of drove this concept in the social media space, a lot of people at this point might not know about it, but somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a research paper written by a guy named Mark Granovetter called "The Strength of Weak Ties."
Yeah.
And so that term still gets floating around some, and what happens is people are like, oh, the strength of weak ties. It's important to have these weak ties. And it's interesting because it's been really misunderstood and misapplied. And Granovetter himself has come out and said that repeatedly, that there's a couple of things about it. Is that, first of all, is a weak tie versus a non-tie. A weak tie is a former colleague who you don't necessarily, who you check in with every once in a while, but you had an active relationship with them, right? A weak tie is a cousin who you see, at family events every 2 or 3 years. It's not just someone who accepted your friend request on LinkedIn or Facebook.
Yeah.
That's not even a weak tie. I mean, Granovetter actually refers to them as non-ties.
Yeah.
And again, there's nothing wrong with it. That's a starting point for a relationship, but it's a starting point. Just leaving it there, it's basically useless. I mean, all it is it gives you a hair more visibility in LinkedIn search. That's literally the only benefit of being connected to them if you don't pursue more relationship out of it. The other thing is that Granovetter also, that he pointed out, is that it creates awareness. It's a way of hearing about opportunities. So and so, oh, my friend's got my friend's got a store and he's looking for a new point of sale system, right? Or something like that. Somebody's looking for a job. They haven't posted it yet. So that's what the strength of weak ties was about, learning about opportunities. And in fact, specifically, his research was about learning about job opportunities. And that was what it was. It was just simply learning about them and awareness. it doesn't give you any kind of favored position in those things.
Yeah.
Great. Yes. Great. You gets you in the door. Yes. I'll look at their resume. Okay, great. But that's it.
That's it.
That's it. Right.
Absolutely.
And so what I actually just kind of coined this recently is going through this and kind of revisiting this. It's that weak ties create awareness, strong ties create opportunity.
Yep.
And and again, I think that's underutilized is that matter of realizing that, that really knowing someone and knowing, and knowing a fairly good number of people outside of your immediate friends and family. Those are the things that actually get you a one-on-one conversation with the hiring manager rather than just, I'll take a look at their resume. They're the one, so I just almost without fail, I think most people who are active on social media, most people who are doing networking would do well to focus more on less on meeting new people and more on follow up with the people they're meeting.
Yep, absolutely. I always tell people, go through your network and figure out who I'm willing to invest time to get to know better, right? And you really have to have that go-to list, and you should spend time each week, figuring out who those folks are, especially now when we've got such an unusual work environment where our days are a little bit different than we were, accustomed to just 60 days ago. You've got time, and
right.
it's a perfect opportunity. I call, like we talked about, the things that you have in common, right? That you work together. That weak tie, it is weak, but you worked at the same place, so you have a connection point. So there's that piece of, something that kind of ties us together. It may not be as strong. We may not have talked to each other in the last 5 years since we both left the company, but I at least have a baseline for something to start the conversation. And those connection points, we all have them right now, right? How are you dealing with the COVID situation? How are you dealing with working from home? Before we went live, we're talking about our offices and how, the commonalities there are pretty significant. And if you find a way to re-engage those people that you really want to build those relationships with, there's some perfect opportunity to check in and see how they're doing just across the board. How are you dealing with working with your wife at the same, at the dining room, table, or how are you handling it with the kids at home, or how are you handling it not seeing your team that you're accustomed to seeing every day at the office? Everybody's going through something right now that unfortunately is uniquely, there's a unique connectiveness to it.
Right. There's a fancy scientific word for that, or social scientific word for that. It's called the discovery of multiplexity. And multiplexity is basically it's realizing that we have multiple things in common, right? And then the discovery of that, figuring out those things that we have in common, is one of the most effective ways to do rapid trust building.
Yeah.
And we've all had that experience. You meet someone for the first time and you find out, oh, you have a pug. I have a pug too. Awesome. Well, that's kind of cool. That's something to talk about. And then you find out that we both went to Rice. Oh, wow. Okay. And the next thing you know, and you're in marketing, and you start discovering these things. By the time you start to get to like 5, it's like, wow, we got a lot in common. We should have some more conversation. You get to 7 to 8. It's like, this is weird. And you get to 10 or more, you find 10 or more things in common with someone. And it's like, oh my God, my brother from another mother.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so that's by the way, one of the reasons I think, another thing people don't do enough is really dig in on reading people's LinkedIn profiles, their blogs, their most recent posts. Get to know what's going on as much as with them about their background, and as much you can about what's going on with them now, before you go and have a one-on-one conversation like this. Because those are all, and you figure out those connection points, and don't be brute force about it. Don't sit there and just go, oh, by the way, I saw, you can be a little surreptitious about it. You look for opportunities. Right? You look for opportunities to bring those things up. You don't want to look like you've been cyber stalking them, even though kind of have, but no, it's to your homework. But again, this is not really new advice. I mean, this is what Harvey Mackay did with the Mackay 66, right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
He had a whole questionnaire. For those who don't know it, he had this whole set of 66 questions, and he kept them in paper files on all of his clients.
And he reviewed them before he went and met
them. And he reviewed them before he went and met them, and he pulled it out and laid it out. And if he got another piece of information in the course of the call, he filled it out. He added it to that file. And he spent 5-10 minutes reviewing that before every call. Yeah. And he was considered, I mean, this is a guy who built a multi-million-dollar envelope company, off of being so great at relationships.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I see that a lot of people struggle with that today. I mean, there's a whole lot of value in going back to the paper process, right? Capturing that information, writing those down, and maybe it's the Mackay 66 or your own set of questions, but there's something that you can learn from everybody every single time that you engage with them. But how you capture that information so that you can utilize it potentially in the future, I think, is one of the keys. And I see a lot of people that they don't really know how to do that. Should I write it down? Should I put it in my notes on the LinkedIn profile that I've connected on with them, or do I keep it in an address book, kind of, where I keep my email account or my contact for that person? Where do you recommend most people capture that information these days?
Your CRM system, if you have it, or your email client's contact, and sync that between, use Google Contacts or whatever, and so you've got it available both at your desktop and at your phone.
Yeah.
Paper is great for some things. Paper is great for capture. If I don't know if you're familiar with the getting things done process, GTD. So I don't know if you know that's my Uncle David.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah. So I'm pretty. I feel like I have sort of a moral obligation to be decent at GTD.
But required.
But paper is great for capture because it's because it's fast, right? And it's also great for things for like temporary use when you're going to have it. When you're traveling, that when you get out and you want to actually be able to know and remember who's your what rental car am I picking up, and this, that, and the other thing, who's picking me up, where am I going? It's nice having that stuff on paper, right? Because phones fail. They can take time booting up and stuff, but for that amount of information, I mean, let's say you were just doing the Dunbar number. Let's say you were just trying to keep track of, let's just say you're trying to keep track of 66 pieces of information about 150 people.
Yeah.
I mean, Mackay did it because he filled a filing cabinet full of it. Yeah. And he always did his calls from his office where he could pull that out. When as mobile as we are, whatever it is that you're doing, you've got to have access to it on your mobile.
Gotta be in here.
Yeah. So yeah, you need it in a system you really need it in a system that's in the cloud and that you can access it from multiple places. So
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. CRM or Google Contacts or whatever it may be.
What's your favorite CRM these days?
Funny you should ask, because I'm actually evaluating that right now. I've kind of had Zoho because I'm kind of at scratch right now because I've been in the corporate environment, so I've just been using the built-in contacts in my email client for a while. But kind of in scaling, Zoho kind of ends up being kind of the default for small business because they've got the free version and you can incrementally ramp up. But I'm also looking. I got a demo today of one called Go CRM.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I haven't seen it.
It was really impressive at $39 a month.
Oh wow.
And what I like particularly about it is it has phone and text integrated into it.
Ooh.
At that price, and it's new. It's only been on the market a little over a year, but but they had developed it in-house. They were a marketing agency, and they had developed it in-house like 5 years ago. So it's pretty robust at this point. I'm also looking at one called Sanity Desk. They're based here in Austin, and it is so much more than a CRM system. If you were just saying, "Hey, I'm a small business and I want a CRM system," I don't know. That's what I don't know. That's what I'd send you to. Sorry if you guys are listening, because I'm talking to them.
They're not a sponsor, so.
but in terms of sort of all-in-one, a lot of people are trying to kind of hit this thing of having your CRM and your customer support and your email marketing and landing pages and even website and a logic-driven website. That your website content, offers, and all that kind of stuff are built out of your CRM system. So in terms of a digital marketing centric CRM system for a heavily, for if you're going to build out a very robust funnel, it blows me away. It's just phenomenal. And actually, and they've got a automation builder for, that's usable without being a developer. If you wanted to use like Entreport or Infusionsoft, you got to have a developer.
Yeah,
this
you do.
This is not something that even as a reasonably intelligent business owner you can even attempt to do on your own. Yeah. So I tend to lean towards for early stage for small businesses. I tend to lean towards things that don't require you to have, that you can at least maintain and tweak, just being relatively computer savvy. So those are the ones that are kind of on my radar at the moment. So
that's good to know. I have to check the other one. We have been, I don't know if you know this, I have 2 software companies that I do in addition to Ripple, and we've been using Hubspot for a while now, and it's okay. It's again, hopefully they're not listening, send the black helicopters, but or cut my account off because we're not ready to move away from them yet. But we use them in conjunction with Salesforce, and it gets up there, and the cost is high, and you really got to pay attention to what you're getting in terms of the platform and the integration aspects. I wouldn't say you need a development team necessarily to interact the two, but there are quirks that have been less than ideal. So we've been looking at different options as well. So I'm gonna have to check out that one you mentioned, because it sounds like, especially the fact it's an Austin company, would be a.
Yeah, I'll introduce you to the Sanity Desk guys, Sam Cook, and that one too. That one also came out of them building it internally for an agency.
Yeah,
they built a multi-million-dollar agency, and this is what they built in house. And are now going to market with it and stuff. And you'd know some of the people like Dave Gonzalez is on their advisory board, and Frank Robles is their CTO, and so good guys in the Austin business. So yeah, I'll make that intro. You'll dig that.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, so as we begin to look to wrap up, I want to thank you. What would you want anybody that's watching this to know about Scott Allen and the Virtual Handshake, what you're doing these days? I mean, what would you like everybody to know about you?
Yeah. So I am, like I said, I've been kind of out in the corporate world the last 10 years. I was at General Motors, and really on the solutions architect on the social technology team. And before that, I actually had worked at another Austin company, Momentum Factor, and really did some great work with them in the direct selling space and with social listening and a lot of things there. And so as I've going back and going from freelancer to firm, I'm actually launching 2 businesses right now. And one is the Virtual Handshake. So I'm actually doing the Virtual Handshake as a consulting firm. And my thing there is social at scale. This is, hey, I love the relationship piece of it, the content piece of it. All that is all well and good. But there's a lot of people who do that stuff well. What there are very few people who know how to do is how to use the technology to support that.
Yeah.
How to deal with the governance issues that you have to do, the compliance issues that you have to deal with in social media when you start talking about going beyond the business owner and their phone, or a 3-person marketing team and Sprout Social, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you start talking about moving into enterprise tools and data compliance and data security and making sure that you're following the data use requirements of Facebook and Twitter and stuff. That's what I've been living and breathing the last 10 years. That's why I've been out of the public eye, is because that's what I've been focusing on. So that's what I'm doing with that business, is social at scale. And I'm really looking for mid-market and growth stage companies that are facing those challenges. The other thing I'm doing is, it's kind of interesting, while everyone else is, figuring out how to go be virtual, I'm feeling really drawn to my community. I live out here in Bastrop. We're on the golf course in Tahitian Village, and I'm feeling really pulled to get more involved with my community. It's my favorite place I've ever lived. Been about in the Houston and Austin area all my life, but I just love Bastrop, and all of these local businesses are facing this challenge of having to figure out, what am I going to do in this digital first world. And so I looked, and there was not much to speak of out here in terms of a marketing agency serving Bastrop County. So Bastrop, Elgin, Smithville, maybe on out to LaGrange and Cedar Creek, et cetera. So I was able to get the domain name Bastrop Marketing. So I am launching Bastrop Marketing, bastropmarketing.com, and looking to help those local businesses really here in my area. Not that I wouldn't help somebody from Austin, but a lot of other people who could help those people. Someone who wants someone to come into their office and maybe not shake their hand, but at least do a wave and sit down and fist bump virtual fist bump, but that's that someone who's committed to this community. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm. So those are the 2 things I'm doing. So anyone out in the Bastrop area, local business who's figuring out those challenges, I want to help.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations on that front. And you said you're working on the next edition of the Virtual Handshake.
And we're working on the next edition of the Virtual Handshake. So really want anyone who's got some success stories, a cool, interesting success story from any platform, whatever. I'm interested in the story, that's something recent, say within the last 5 years or so. I'd love to hear those stories, because like I said, we're updating pretty much all the examples in the book, and when I'm also launching a podcast. So I'm launching the Virtual Handshake podcast.
Oh, nice.
And the focus on it is going to be the social at scale thing too. So anyone doing enterprise social or products for enterprise social, be interested in talking to about a guest.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I've got a few suggestions for sure. So
yeah.
Well, I really appreciate this.
I get to flip that around, and I'll ask the way my favorite networking question to ask, and it's just a different way of putting it. Is what's got your energy and attention these days?
Well, so we've been really fortunate that we have been COVID proof, so to speak, with regards to the stay-at-home order and the slowdown in business. I have 2 software products that have continued to grow during this time period that have been, requiring the vast majority of my attention to kind of continue to grow them and expand them. So one is a construction project management software called Owner Insight, and we work with a lot of school districts, municipalities, and healthcare. It's a project management software geared around the communication of the entire project team. So we're a bit unique in that regard. And then we have a planning tool that we brought out for schools to help them with their identification of what they have at the campus level, identify short-term, near-term, and long-term priorities, and organize that around assessments that are being done at the local campus level, and then create a financial model for them to be able to go forward and either get a capital improvement plan approved by the school board, or if they're going to go for a bond, be able to back up all the what they're asking for in the financial aspects of the bond plan with real data. And so there are 2 things that I'm super passionate about, because we've got a strong commitment to the education space and school districts in general. They're some of the best people, and one of the certainly all intended to do the best things for their students and staff, and they're often unfortunately taken advantage of in these different situations. So we want to equip them with tools to put them back in that owner seat to be able to drive the right kinds of decisions with the right kinds of data.
Right. So leaning in on that, I imagine that it's probably not difficult for you to find. You probably have the contact list of all the school districts in the country and the superintendents and stuff. Who are the people who can, in those school districts or elsewhere, who can help your business?
Yeah. So ultimately, it often, you would think it's the superintendent. It's generally not. It's usually the chief operating officer or the CFO for the district. A lot of times it's their director of construction or director of facilities. Because we touch on a couple of the key areas that cross over, there are generally a few folks within the district that we want to get buy-in from when we're working with them. But those contacts, they tend to move around a lot. And so there's a lot of fluidity within a lot of districts. And so really, we're always trying to establish and build relationships within those districts. And quite honestly, and you're going to hate this as a marketer, right? We're horrible at marketing our services, predominantly because most of our clients have come from word of mouth. We've done such a good job with some claim to fame districts around the state that we get a lot of referrals because of them out talking to their peers, which is fantastic. But we work not only in Texas but around the country. So it's a platform. It's a software as a service. Both platforms are software as a service, so we can go anywhere, work with anybody. But we've got a really strong following in Colorado, Texas. Obviously, we've got some really good school environments back east that have really been, big fans of what we do and why we do it. And the nice thing about it is we're a software company. We're, both companies kind of fall under the same envelope, but we always like to say, hey, we're a software company that doesn't function like a software company. We pick up the phone, we talk to our customers, we solve problems. There's no 24-hour, 48-hour response on a support ticket. You know me from my prior life, right? Customer service is my number one thing. And so there's very much a Ripple philosophy ingrained within what we do with the team. And everybody understands kind of the commitment we have there, because we are only as good as our ability to solve problems and to take care of our customers. And so that's why we get a lot of really positive referrals because of that, which has been good. But I'd like to see that thing go like this. I mean, but one of these days, we'll figure out the marketing formula for it. But it's been a fun experience because it was not something at this stage of my career I ever expected to be involved in. And I love it. We're innovating every day. I've got a great creative team. They do a fantastic job. And I've learned more about software and software development than I ever cared to learn about. But I have a blast with it because I really, at the end of the day, it's like you said earlier, kind of with CRMs, you got to be able to know and understand what the problems are in order to address them, right? You've got to be able to really, be willing to listen to the problems that your clients have. And that's something that I think we do exceptionally well. So
Great.
But thanks for asking that. I appreciate it. I mean, yeah, there's 13,800 school districts in the U.S. I'd like to see every one of them using our software, and at some point get to a point where it's just free for everybody, because it's a tool that I know is essential for school districts everywhere to utilize. Obviously, we're not quite there yet. But if Bill Gates is watching and wants to just do a grant, I'm down, whatever, But yeah, it's been a labor of love in that regard, and then I continue to do Ripple. I mean, I'm obviously this year has changed a little bit. Some of the conferences that I had lined up for speaking opportunities, they're either going virtual or they're putting on a hiatus until 2021. But that we're kind of pivoting there, but I have a lot of consulting clients I work with and coaching clients as well, so it keeps me busy. But every day I get to wear 3 hats, so I kind of love it.
Yeah, some people think there's a lot of people who, if they have too many things going on, they go crazy. If I don't have enough things going on, I go crazy.
Yeah, my wife was kind of mad at me this weekend because she could just tell, I'm supposed to be off, and I had the laptop. It was in, the office. I had it down. I wasn't using it, but you could just tell I was preoccupied with about 3 or 4 different ideas that I've got constantly floating around. And hey, you're an entrepreneur. That's what you do, right?
Yeah, I had a day a couple of weeks ago. I just couldn't get to sleep. It's about 2 a.m. and I couldn't get to sleep, and I finally just came in and just typed for about an hour and a half, just because I had to get it out of my head. That's that GTD, right? You don't get it out of your head, it's going to keep going through it, and that is and I meditate, and the meditation still was not helping clear it. I had to get it out, or it was going to just keep me awake.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse for entrepreneurs. I promise. Right. But I'll take it. I enjoy it. I know you do too. And so, Scott, I'm really glad we did this. This was we're gonna have to find another time to do it. And for whatever reason, StreamYard wasn't showing me any comments, but I'm sure people were doing them. But hopefully, if we see anything on Facebook or on YouTube, we'll go back and respond to them. But I definitely appreciate you joining me today for sure. Just so everybody has one last look, your website for the Virtual Handshake is up.
Yep, thevirtualhandshake.com. The Virtual Handshake.
Yeah. Your LinkedIn is just Scott Allen.
That's it.
All right, sir. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look forward to the next time.
All right, sounds good. We're going to go ahead and end it here, and I will talk to you soon.